Hi everyone. It's been a few days since I did a live Q&A session, and I appreciate that there is a lot going on at the moment. And there's a lot of concern about the lawsuits, etc. So I particularly want to focus on the lawsuits that are going on, give you a sort of a status update on those, and also talk about some of the lawsuits that are coming up. Hi, Yusuf. First one in. So let me start off by talking about where we are on the lawsuits. And I know there's been sort of a little bit of confusion, talked about by some of the lawyers over the last couple of days, and it's understandable. Um, and so, perhaps you guys are confused about that. I don't know. So we'll see about that and see where we stand. So I will come to questions in a few minutes, but I want to take a few minutes at the beginning. So hold your questions so I don't have to scroll back. Hold your questions just right now. And we're going to focus on DV2020 and DV2021. And although I've been posting videos about DV2022 for the new entry period, I don't want to talk so much about that. I really want to make sure that DV2020 and 2021 is covered. So in the last couple of days, there was a little bit of a disagreement, I think, between the lawyers on strategy. So let me just explain. There are basically three camps of lawyers, right? Three lawyers that cooperated and worked together in what's called the Gomez case. But the Gomez case was actually a combination of four lawsuits. Mohammed and Fongjong, which is Curtis Morrison, Rafael Arena, is those cases, and those were paid for. Paid for. You had to pay the lawyer to be a part of those cases, right? So that's Curtis Morrison. Then there was the Akka case. The Akka case is Charles Kuck, Greg Siskind, and that group of lawyers. Theirs was they asked for a class action, but they actually also had named plaintiffs, quite a few named plaintiffs, etc. But it was a non-paid case, right? It was a pro bono case. And then finally, there was the AILA case, AILA, Jesse Bless and team, various lawyers from a group of firms who worked on a pro bono case, and that was the Gomez case, right? So that became the sort of the lead case, the name of the case that Judge Mehta ruled under. Now, in the end, we got two things just before the deadline expired on September 30th, and those two things were under the Gomez case, right? The two things we got certification of the class, which was critically important in my opinion, and we got the 9,095 visas set aside, right? So the class meant that everybody who was a DV Lottery 2020 winner was covered under a class on the Gomez case, right? Everybody. Although there were only 7 named plaintiffs from Gomez on DV Lottery, there were, they were representatives of a class, the class being everybody, right? So the Akka case and the Mohammed and Fongjong cases take some benefit from the Gomez class certification because the Gomez class certification covers everybody as an umbrella. That was the first thing. The second thing is that there were 9,095 visas set aside. We're not guaranteed to get them at this point. It's pending a final decision, right? Judge Mehta said, and he realized that unless he took action before midnight on September 30th to do those two things, that A, not everybody would be covered, and B, the government could say, well, the deadline's passed now, so we're not doing anything. We've got no more visas, right? So Judge Mehta agreed or told the government to set aside 9,095 visas for issuance later once the whole argument has finished, right? That was extremely good. It was extremely important that we got that, and I'm tremendously pleased that we got that. There were also, in the last 3 weeks of September, there were 6,000 visas issued which was a tremendous win. So between the 6,000 visas and the 9,000, we've got about 15,000 people, who, well, 6,000 got their visas and 9,000 should get their visas later on when we get the final decision. It's not guaranteed yet, but it should do, right? Okay. Bearing in mind that the Akka case, Charles Kuck and Co., and the Mohammed Fongjong case, Curtis Morrison and Co., depend on the class that has been certified under the Gomez case. They obviously, Curtis Morrison and Charles Kuck, have somewhat of a dependency on the Gomez case, the AILA case, right? And the AILA lawyers decided to appeal against a preliminary injunction decision that Meta passed down, which was challenging the ban, right? The ban itself. And they decided to appeal that. And they did a kind of a deal, if you like, with the government. They said, look, we're going to appeal that, but we want an expedited appeal. We want a fast appeal. Fast meaning hopefully, can be appealed within 2020, because an appeal normally can take months, right? So in order to get the speed of the appeal, they said, okay, we're challenging on this preliminary injunction, we're appealing that, but we accept, and we want to go fast on that, fast relatively speaking, but we'll put all the other arguments on hold for now, for the class, right? That was, and I agree with Charles Kuck's assessment on this. I think that was a smart move from the perspective of the AILA team. Curtis Morrison, Rafael Arena perhaps felt that was slowing things down, and I know Curtis wasn't thrilled about it. He pinged me about it, and he posted a couple of comments about it, I believe. Because he is somewhat relying on the AILA case, because they've now got the sort of the umbrella coverage. Okay, so that caused a little bit of concern between the three teams of lawyers. But understand this about lawyers: each of the lawyers I've spoken to on this case, number one, they're all very good. They're very good, very smart people, and number two, they are working in the best interests of their clients. Right. So Curtis is working for the best interests of his clients. He's not thinking or considering the whole class. He's thinking about the people that have paid him. It's very important that he does that. Charles Kuck is thinking about his case and his clients, which were named plaintiffs. And most of Charles Kuck's plaintiffs, got decisions on their cases. They either got visas issued, or they got denied, or they got decisions before the deadline. Most of the named plaintiffs in all of the cases got decisions, before the deadline. And so that was a positive thing. But there are some people, obviously, in Curtis Morrison's cases and in the Kennedy case, that have not got decisions yet, right? Okay, so because of the dependency on the AILA case, even though what the AILA team did was very smart from their perspective and the right thing to do from their perspective, it's caused a little bit of concern, I think, for Curtis. I think Charles Kuck is less concerned about it, and he recognizes that it's important to challenge the overall ban. Right? Why is it important to challenge the ban? Well, if nobody challenges the ban and Trump extends the ban, we're screwed, right? Quite simply. And if Trump gets elected, although it's looking pretty unlikely he'll get elected right now, but if he gets elected, then it's a big problem, and somebody needs to challenge that ban. And so, the AILA team are challenging that aspect of it, the ban itself, right? And so it's important they do that work, and I'm pleased they're doing that work. Okay. The reality was we're not going to get a fast decision on the rest of it and get the 9,000 visas issued quickly anyway. So the fact that we've sacrificed some speed, in a sense, pending the appeal, to me is like, okay, it's a worthwhile sacrifice. And certainly from the AILA team's perspective, it's the right thing to do. And they must do what's the right thing for their clients, right? They must use their expertise and skills. They can't they can't necessarily do everything that's right for Charles Kuck or that's right for Curtis Morrison's cases. They've got to do what's important for them, and Charles Kuck needs to do the same thing for his clients, and Curtis and Raphael Arenia need to do the same thing for their clients. So you've got different teams with different objectives, different clients, and they're all working on the same thing, but from different ways, right? So don't be worried that there's a little bit of consternation and disagreement in the teams. They're very smart people, and what I've learned about smart people, and particularly lawyers, they're very optimistic. I thought I was an optimist, but speaking to some of these lawyers, they are tremendously optimistic about what they can achieve. They have to go in and fight for people, and they wouldn't do that if they thought they were losers. So they feel like winners. They're well-educated, smart people, right? They believe they can win, otherwise they wouldn't take these things on. And they are also they're used to being in control of their own destiny, in control of their own case, and so it doesn't sort of suit them well to be in the same bus as everybody else, right, as other lawyers. And it's difficult to get them to to work together, as it were, and be respectful of each other's opinions. I'm not saying there's any difficulties there, but it must be difficult for people, very smart people, very focused on on their objective. It must be difficult for them to work together. Okay, so don't worry about all of that. We're on the same path that we've always been on, etc. The Kennedy lawsuit, Curtis Morrison is working on that one too. I think there's a hearing, I think it's early next week, on that one. But so there's activity happening, but the 9,095 visas we know are not going to be sorted out. We're not going to have any action on that until later on this year, probably December, and it's going to be weeks or months before that can get sorted out, right? Okay. There's another lawsuit that Charles Kuck is about to raise. He's referring to it as the DV2021 lawsuit. It's actually going to include some other classes, F2A, IR5, some other classes, and it's mainly for DV2021 people, but it also can include non-plaintiff DV2020 people who have their visas already, who got their visas. And the reason that they're doing this other lawsuit is to challenge the proclamation, but to also do it in a different court. They want to do that in California. The reason for that is that there was a recent win in a California court under Judge White, and the arguments presented in that other case, NAM versus DHS, I think it is, the arguments presented in that case were able to achieve an injunction, not on DV lottery, but for some other visa classes. And the court accepted some arguments that Judge Mehta had not accepted. And so it's kind of a smart strategy on Charles Kuck and Greg Siskin's perspective to say, whoa, there's a court over there where they've got a basis for the arguments that they want to make to try and challenge the ban as a whole. And again, they're thinking ahead, and they're thinking, look, if Trump gets back in, it seems like a small chance, but if he gets back in, we need some way of fighting. Otherwise, people that have visas, that got those visas, those 6,000 people that got visas in the last 3 weeks, those people could be affected. And also DV 2021, which is 50,000 visas, those people could be affected. If Trump gets back in, on the presidential election, we've got more of this crazy world ahead of us if Trump gets in. Please, I hope that America is smart enough to not let that happen again. But we need the lawyers to be fighting on that perspective, right? So there's a new lawsuit. It's a paid-for lawsuit. There's a fee of $1,000, as I understand it, which is a one-time fee. And I've seen people, I think I've just seen a couple of comments where they think $1,000 for a lawsuit is a lot of money. It's peanuts, guys. It's a lot of money in a lot of countries. I get that. But if you understand the cost of, of legal work in this country, it's not expensive at all. And one of the reasons that Charles Kuck is wanting to charge money on that is so that they can take some of that money and work with Congress and have lobbyists, political action going on at the same time as the legal action. And Curtis Morrison has done that as well. I mean, Curtis Morrison had a lot of people on his lawsuits, and he took some of that money and invested that money in political support, lobbyist support. It's very important that they've done that. Curtis Morrison could have taken the money and run, right? He could have said, "Well, I'm doing my lawyerly thing," and he could have just carried on that way. But he's actually working in different ways, to move politically. And Charles Kuck wants to be able to do the same thing with different avenues, etc. And all of that's very useful and important work. And so, if you are in a position where you want to join that lawsuit, my understanding is that it will be named plaintiffs and a class, right? So it could affect everybody, whether you're on that lawsuit or not. But as we did see, named plaintiffs tend to get a higher pecking order, a higher priority than non-named plaintiffs. Even though a class is protected, the first part of the class is the people that represent the class, and they tend to get sort of priority. So again, it's a decision for each of you personally whether you think that you want to spend the money and be able to benefit from that. If you're a DV2021 candidate and you're concerned about the chances of being stopped later on, particularly if you've got a high case number, for example, you may want to consider entering that lawsuit, but it really is up to you. I'm involved, if you like, in the background with each of these lawyers. I'm speaking directly to the AILA team, to Charles Kuck, to Curtis Morrison. I've supported them wherever I could with information and also declarations, evidence that they were able to use at the hearings. But I'm not involved with any of them from a business perspective, so I've got no axe to grind. I've got no interest in it financially, etc. But that's my perspective. That's my honest opinion. You can take it from as it is. So that's the lawsuits. I'm sure people want me to give them clear answers about whether, people ask me, should I be in this lawsuit or not? But it's very difficult for me to sort of tell anybody, yes, you should be in that lawsuit, or no, you shouldn't be in that lawsuit. I don't want to do that because, it really is your decision. You have to decide how much the money means to you compared to other things going on in your life. And also you need to consider, we'll have hopefully 9 months of processing. It might be affected, might be less than that if Trump gets back in. But we'll have some processing time. We will get some people through, I hope. But it really does depend on the presidential election. Trump is, a complete idiot. And even though half the White House is sick right now with COVID, they're still alive. Unfortunately, I shouldn't say that, but they're still there. They're still able to, to cause chaos. So so we'll have to see. Okay, so I'm hoping that kind of explains the legal position at the moment. And everybody, I assume that you all know that DV2020 is going to take a while to sort out. And there's certain things that we know. There's a few sort of standard things. If you received a visa prior to April 23rd and you just got reissued a visa, you should not be subject to the proclamations that stop travel. You will be subject to the Schengen area type 14-day quarantine ones, but you should not be affected by the immigrant ban. So, if you're in that position and you want to enter before December 31st, you should be able to do that. If, on the other hand, you received a visa after that time, in September, and it wasn't a reissuance, then you should be affected by the ban, right? By the immigrant ban, and you should not be able to enter the USA. My understanding from a comment that Charles Kuck made was that somebody he knew of tried and was turned around at the airport, at the arriving airport, was sent back from America. So, be careful if you want to try that. It's your call, but it could be a waste of time and a waste of a flight ticket. So it's your call on that. Okay, so let me just see if I've got some questions. So Nitu's asking, when should we accept or expect the interview on DV 2020? It's going to be maybe December, something like that, not before December. Akka, I hope, yeah, I'm well, thank you, Akka. When is the DV 2021 2022 going to kick off? Says Regina. The entry period is open now for DV 2022. That's entries now in October, results in May, and the process will start interviewing in October of 2021 to September, the end of September 2022. All right, so takes a long time. So well, it's just Regina, yeah. Eunice Opong. Hi, Eunice. We've seen you before. Charles Kuck and the Gomez team were working tirelessly, making good arguments. Curtis was making money by collecting names. I think that's it's an unfortunate perspective, Eunice. I don't agree with it, I have to say. I think it's very difficult for you guys to understand how much work goes behind the scenes. And Curtis wasn't just collecting names. Curtis worked hard, and if you heard the final hearing, can't remember the date now, but if you heard the final hearing, Curtis spoke up at the end of the hearing, and he pointed out that to the judge had referred to a piece of case which was about extending deadlines beyond the September 30th, financial deadlines in that case, but beyond the fiscal year. And Curtis piped up and said, yeah, we had that in there, Judge. And the judge said, oh, yeah, thank you. I knew I read it. It's only because I read it in your briefs that I knew about it, kind of thing. In other words, the 2 points I want to make about that: Curtis, A, hadn't done nothing. He was there in every one of the hearings, whether you heard him or not, and you probably heard his colleague, Phil Arenia, a lot. But secondly, there's a hell of a lot of work that goes behind the scenes, all that research of case law and to figure out how you're going to make your arguments, and to lobby, the government and Congress, etc. That's not nothing. That's not just collecting names. And, perhaps you don't understand it. I understand how you might feel that way. And I've been amazed and impressed with the AILA team and with Charles Kuck's team, etc. as well. But it's not like any of them were just sitting on their hands and doing nothing, collecting names. So, please, Eunice, try and understand that. I think it's important to respect what they've achieved. Right. So, hi from Albania. Just a question, please. Has any problem that this is Bookie, by the way, Bookie Pachuri. Has any problem that the moment that I applied yesterday, I put the personal number of mine and not the number of the passport? Personal number of mine. Like you put a phone number on there, or not the number of the passport? Yeah, that would be a problem. You're supposed to put the number of the passport. The passport you have, here's one from Spain, for example, and it has an ID. This is, it has a passport number. You're supposed to put that number in there. So if you didn't do that, Bookie, yeah, you probably messed yourself up. Yusuf, do you think that DV 2021 will have the same issues as DV 2020? So I don't know if it'll be the same issues. I try and tell people every year, you never know what's going to happen. In 2012, there was a complete disaster. They had to do a redraw. In 2014 or 2015, I mean, every couple of years, there's some screw up, frankly. And I mean, it's a difficult process. I get that. I understand the government, have difficulties. Obviously, Trump has made everything much worse. Frankly, everything much worse. But what will happen in 2021, we'll have to see. I think if we're in a Biden administration, I think things will start to calm down again, and we'll get back to common sense. But we have to see. The Biden is gaining ground. Trump got COVID. Even though he said the whole thing was a hoax. So that's probably shocked some of his supporters who thought the whole thing was a hoax. But you never know with elections. You just never know. In the 2016 presidential election, Hillary Clinton should have been an absolute shoo-in. She should have walked in to the presidency, but Trump won. So who knows? We have to see. Right. Tell us about the visa 9094. I think you mean 9095. Quizera. I think I've covered that. Stop fooling. Yeah, Louis, but you're waiting for the ban to end. Yes, exactly. So you have your visas. You want the ban to end. I think you can either just wait, right, or you could participate if you weren't a named plaintiff, Louis. But you could participate in this new lawsuit if you want. But it's up to you. HDF, IMAD is saying $1,000 is very expensive. Yes, in other countries you might think that's very expensive. $1,000 here is not expensive. But anyway, it's your choice. Evans is agreeing with Eunice. As I say, Evans, I don't agree, but you're each entitled to your opinions. Akum, how much do you expect exception of entry to the USA for DV2020 by DOS? I don't expect them to. They won't suddenly change their mind, Akum, and start letting people into the country before December 31st. They won't just do that. So I don't expect many people to achieve that, if any. I'd like. I mean, it would be kind of cool if someone tries and succeeds. I'd like that, but I don't think it's going to be a common thing. Most people should just wait, especially if you're traveling with kids or there's a couple. I mean, 2 or 3 people, plane tickets from Africa or Asia or something, $1,000 for each one of you, and you're just going to get turned around at the airport. No, don't do that. But if it's a single person that just wants to, spend a weekend flying to America and see what happens, yeah, fine. Winnie, you're asking about AILA. Is it good that they filed the appeal? I think it's a good thing. I appreciate and understand their tactic. I know each of the lawyers don't agree, Winnie, but I thought it was a smart move. So there you go. But I'm not a lawyer. It's just my perspective based on how I saw things going. And what you have to understand is we've got 3 different lawyers who've got different tactics as well. It actually serves us very well. We've got the AILA team doing one tactic. Curtis didn't agree with the AILA team, but that's fine. He can do his thing, right? And that's a different tactic. And then we got the Akka team, Charles Kuck and so on, doing their thing, slightly different tactic. They didn't need to appeal because the AILA team appealed. So we've got all these different ways of attacking and protecting you guys. I think that's a good thing. I think why just go with one strategy? The AILA case covers, Lasagna, you're talking about the AILA case. Yes, it covers the all DV 2020 winners. Thank you for pointing that out. But we don't know when the scheduling will start on the 9095. And if you ask KCC or the embassies right now, they'll tell you, the year is over. There's nothing more they're going to do, right? They don't know all of this stuff going on, the legal stuff going on. And they, we've still got to win the rest of the argument. Sanko and Dreve, will Charles Kuck and Nayla keep fighting for the rest of the visas after the 9095 is sorted out? Yeah, they will. That's one of the things, Sanko, that I think is Charles Kuck has said they're going to go for the extra 20 or 24,000 visas, right? After the 9095 and after the 18,000 that we got, or 19,000 with adjustment to status as well. He's going to keep on trying and get more. Like I've said earlier, the lawyers are optimistic. That's going to take an act of Congress. That would take Biden to get involved or Congress to get involved. If Trump wins, that's not going to happen, right? We're not going to get any more. And the 9095 were protected as of September 30th. So to extend beyond that, as I say, we need a law change for that to happen. That's not an easy thing to make happen. But that's one of the reasons why Charles Kuck is wanting to have this other lawsuit, that will partly fund paying lobbyists to get congressional help to try and get more visas, right? So, you know, this stuff doesn't just happen. You know, you can't run a car on air. You know, it has to be funded somehow, and lobbyists are expensive. You're complaining about $1,000 for lawyers, crikey. You know, wait till you find out how much lobbyists cost. You know, because they are influencing, you know, how laws are made, etc. That's not a cheap business to be in. So, you know, so yeah, it's expensive. Okay. Genki Sela says, you got your DV2020 visa in September 2020. Well done. Congratulations. You got a valid B1, B2 issued April 2018. Can I enter USA with B1, B2 and register as an immigrant with a 2020 visa? No, you can't. Your B1, B2 actually should have been revoked when you were given the immigrant visa, but whether it was or wasn't, it's not valid anymore. You must not enter on the B1, B2. Your next entry to the USA needs to be using that immigrant visa. All right. If you don't do that, you'll screw the whole thing up. So don't do that, Genki. All right. Evans, you're not the only one. Relax. I don't know what that's for, but try and be nice to each other, people. Manka, what if I play DV lottery with my spouse and children and it happens that both of us were selected? How do we do it? Okay, so we have had husband and wife entries before where both won. Typically, you look at who has the best chance of processing, because the principal selectee obviously has to meet the requirements for education or work experience. So you look at that first and foremost, and then if both have an equal chance, if they've both got the same level of education and they can prove it and there's no problems, you know, with paperwork or anything else, if they're both equal, then you look at the case number and you just process on the earliest case number. You can, in theory, run both cases at the same time, but I wouldn't do that if I were you. You don't need to. If you're sure that one is going to be approved, then why even run the second case? Mohammed is saying, I have a passport, but my wife's passport is expired. Can I fill DV2020 and include my spouse without her passport? Yes, you can do that. What you can't do, though, is do an entry for her separately where you're included on her case. So you can enter one time, but you can't enter the second time because she's got an unexpired passport. But the passport requirement is only for the principal selectee. Okay. Or the principal entry in that case. You're not a selectee yet. You've got to enter, and then maybe you become a selectee. Hosam is asking, has anyone got a 2NL for DV2021? No, nobody has. Nobody's got a 2NL. They have not scheduled. They've not scheduled any 2021 interviews yet, and that's one of the reasons that Charles Kuck wants to continue fighting and wants this new lawsuit for DV2021. The Judge Mehta said that this decision that the government had applied to stop processing visas because there is a ban on entry was unlawful, right? He said, no, you can't do that. Ban on entry, you know, you're using that as an excuse to not process visas and issue visas. And he found that action unlawful. He said that the ban on entry was lawful, right? And that bit is another piece we want to challenge, and that's what the appeal is all about from the AILA case. Judge Mehta found the ban itself was lawful. Okay, I disagree. The judge, you know, the lawyers disagree, and that's why they're appealing. But then the bit that he found unlawful was the actions or inactions of the government based on the proclamation that blocks entry. And so, you know, so that's what, you know, that action is continuing in DV 2021. They're now saying, you know, that they, I mean, they're not scheduling interviews, and they won't. And I know they're not going to, right? I've talked to Charles Kuck about this a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, he was waiting for proof that they were not doing it. But we got the proof. We already know they haven't scheduled for October. They haven't scheduled for November, and they won't schedule for December unless they're forced to do it legally, right? So that's why I've told people expect to have interviews in January, and even that's not for certain, because they may say, no, we're actually not even going to send out 2NLs in November or December, right? So we could lose more time, right? So that's why the lawyers want to keep on fighting DV20 for DV2021. All right, so Hussam, I hope that answers your question. Kefa, must I and my wife's photo meet the DV photo requirements, and yet I'm the main applicant? Yes, every photo, including derivative children, the requirements have to be met for all of you, right? Sleepcake, if AILA challenges the ban, does it cover all the people or only named plaintiffs? All the people, 100% of the people, right? Everybody. That's what the class action did. The Gomez case, which is the AILA case, achieved the class certification. That was important, and that's one of the two things that we got on September 30th. That was a huge, result. So there you go. It's everybody. Mole says, questions for you. I was just been in USA before using J1 visas, but just only valid 1 year. Now I'm in my own country. Is it possible to get the DV lottery and win for that? Yes, you can apply. It's a lottery, so it's not a guarantee that you're going to be selected, Mole. And some J1 visas have a 2-year home requirement. You've got to be at home before you can come back to the States. But with the timing of DV 2022 and you've already been out of the country a year, you're probably going to achieve that. So yeah, enter. Go ahead. Ahmed says, my wife and son already lived with GreenCard. Can I include them when I'm playing DV 2022? If they already have a GreenCard, they could, you can play. They could sponsor you, right? Maybe their green cards have been revoked because they didn't live in the States or something. I don't know, Ahmed. You'll have to explain. But yeah, you can include them if you feel that they're no longer lawful permanent residents, right? You can include them, and the only time that you would exclude a spouse or a child is if they're a US citizen already, not an LPR, not a permanent resident. O1 says, can I apply for the DV lottery from Iraq? You can apply for the DV lottery from anywhere, right? From doesn't make any difference. The point is, can you apply as being an Iraqi-born citizen? Yes, you can. And it's the place of birth that matters, not where you live, not what passport you've got. Lambert says, my police clearance cert has expired 1 year. Right, so okay, so you're group 5. So group 5 is a problem, right? There's 9,095 visas left. There are several thousand people who are already at the embassies, right? Group 5 is going to struggle. There'll be some people maybe from group 5 who are able to get through. So it's up to you. If you want to reapply for your police certificate, if it doesn't cost you a lot of money, why not? It's a worthwhile thing. And normally police certificates take a little bit of time to get. So you could do that. But don't spend a lot of money on it because, yeah, unfortunately with group 5, you've got a high risk of not being in the 9,095. Falls on DV2021, how can we contact Charles Kuck to join the lawsuit? I think I'll put in, this is for you, CUCK at immigration. Okay, that's an email address for Phil Kuck, who's Charles Kuck's son, also a lawyer. So Fallsy, that's the address for that. I think there's also a Facebook page for that lawsuit. I'll try and find that and I'll add it in the description for this video later on. Okay. Amin says, I'm going to do a few more minutes of this and then we'll have to start. But Amin says, when the interview will be rescheduled for people who have the paper in the embassy, how many months we'll wait for the final decision from the judge? Well, the final decision we'll probably get in about December, I think. Probably be mid-December. When will we have cases rescheduled? I don't know. It could be in December, might be January. If they're already at the embassy, it could be instantly. Some of the embassies were very good in moving very fast, as we saw. Some were not so good. So we'll have to wait and see. Paulie Sam, does visa holder between the 4th and 30th September need to join any lawsuit to stop the ban? Do they need to? They don't need to. No. If they want to, they can. They can. If they were, if they want to, actually. So it depends whether they're plaintiffs or not. You can't be a plaintiff twice, right? So as long as you weren't on a lawsuit already, that's already part of Mohammed, Fongjong, Akka, or Gomez, as long as you weren't named on any of those, you could join, is my understanding. But you don't do need to. You could just gamble and wait and see what happens. It's your choice. In 3 weeks' time we have the election. It's up to you. Kumar, will everyone whose case number is current in visa bulletin gets interview appointment on normal circumstances? Normally, yes, if those cases are processed. Not everybody who's current is processed, and actually they move the visa bulletin numbers to the right level to yield the correct number of interviews based on who's processed. So in theory, everybody could be interviewed. That's what the visa bulletin is there for. But in practice, not everybody below the case number. Let's say the visa bulletin says the case number for a region is 6,000. In practice, not everybody below 6,000 is ready for scheduling. They haven't processed their papers. They haven't submitted the DS260 or whatever. So, so it doesn't. What happens in practice is different to the legal reality. Tip top. If I understand you correctly, so you mean that the reason for the 2021 lawsuit is to stop the ban, or at least not have it extended? Is it correct? That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is to stop them behaving the way that they behaved in DV2020, right? So yeah, it's all aspects of it. It's allowing entry for people who are DV2020 already issued and want to enter before December 31st. That's one aspect of it, and the other aspect is to say to the government, you're behaving the same way. You're not processing visas because the ban is on entry. So that's the two things. Tip top, and they're also working on the ban from the point of view for F2A and IR5 other categories as well. So I've covered that, I think. Ibrahim, I covered your question. Mdris Moroccan, please, what about 2021? I have no money for advocate. What do I need to do? In that case, just wait and see what happens, right? If you don't have the money, don't borrow money. Don't spend your last $1,000 on a lawsuit. I mean, you should only be involved in a lawsuit if you can afford to lose that money, if you can afford to spend that money. If not, then understand they're fighting for everybody anyway, right? So you may benefit from that. Just wait and see what happens. And if Trump loses, which I expect him to do so, then this is going to become a little bit more normal anyway. BKP says it's almost 6 weeks since I sent my document, but no response from KCC. Forget the 6 weeks. It's bullshit, right? I don't know why people understand. They send an email saying, "Yeah, we'll get back to you in 6 weeks." They never get back to you in 6 weeks. Forget the 6 weeks, right? It's bullshit, right? It's just some number they pick out the air. Sometimes they'll come back faster than that. Sometimes it'll be slower than that, depending on your case number. If they've got a lot of cases to go through documents, and if your case number is high, they're not working on your case right now. They're working on other cases where the case number is lower. That's basically it. So wait and be patient. It may take longer than 6 weeks. Okay, and also depending on your travel history, depending on your education or your background or your profession, your case could take longer to process than somebody else's case. Okay, so just wait. Right. Jose Luis, hola, ¿cómo estás? I'm in high DV2021 SA 38X. Yeah, it's pretty high. COVID ban 2020 interviews, not looking good to become current. Should I apply for the lawsuit? Will it be another instance? Which lawsuit? You could do, Jose Luis. You could do. This is such a crazy year. Who knows about your case number? It may never become current. It may become current. I don't know. The math, the predictions, and everything else, it's just kind of pointless at the moment because this is a wacky year. So just wait and see. Okay. Amar, my wife is Ukrainian. Can I put a country of eligibility? Can I put her country on country of? Oh, right. So, Amar, you're presumably born in a non-eligible country. Is that why you're asking that? I assume so. Your wife is Ukrainian. Yes, you could enter for yourself, listing her as your spouse. You put your place of birth as the place of birth, and the country of eligibility, the next question, which I think is question number 7 or something, you choose Ukraine as your country of chargeability, and you need to demonstrate your relationship with your wife, obviously. PT Ibrahim, does this affect people in the US? No, people in the US doing adjustment of status are not affected. They never were. They were exempt from all the bans. Hybrid zone. What would be the subject of Charles Kuck new lawsuit? I think we talked about that. Dennis is saying, talked to Charles Kuck, and he said the problem for them is that the visas need to be valid on 423. Theirs is expired. All right, okay, Dennis. We've talked before. Yours expired on the 16th, right? I think it was April 16th from memory. I don't think that's right, to be honest. I don't think that's right. I mean, the point was, at the point that your visa expired, the 16th, the ban was not in place, right? And you didn't have to be, you didn't have to have a valid visa on the 23rd, in my opinion, in order to be protected from the ban. I think the ban itself is clumsily worded because it was written by idiots. I think you're exempt, but what can you do? If Charles is saying that, Charles is a lawyer, I'm not. I just think that's actually wrong. But okay. You'll have to decide then, Dennis, whether you want to, push it and go, with proof of your earlier visa, for example, and proof of the of the proclamation saying, that you shouldn't be impacted by the ban, and try the entry. You could do that. There's no harm in that. Or you just suck it up and you go in January. Your choice now. Murtaza, anyway, I need for the DV2020 to join any of the cases. I think I covered that. Samir says, I'm a great person. Thank you very much. Rita. Hola, Rita. Cadell. Mikhail. Hello. Solara from Sudan. You get refused according to the ban on 21/2/20. What happened about these? Can the judge? Okay. You were refused because of the Sudan ban, the travel ban, right? The travel ban has not been overturned. So whilst the lawyers try to achieve processing of visas, the reality is nobody has taken the ban out. So if the 9095 went on long enough, and we had a new president, and the new president revoked the travel ban, then maybe you could get through. But to be honest, it's not very likely. I think it's probably time to more or less give up on that situation. Nawin Jan says, I take certificate of birth wrong for my children. If your children, your derivatives, it doesn't make any difference. That's fine. Husam again. Anyone from DV2021? I answered that earlier. Ahmed Khalef. Case number 19260 from Asia. So I've talked about that. You can refer to my early comments on that. Fours is saying how to contact the AILA team to raise a lawsuit. They're not raising a lawsuit. It's the Charles Kuck team, and the AILA lawsuit are not going to do additional stuff, right? Mikkel says, does your host need to be the same person? No, it can be a different person who you live with, and then someone else can give you an affidavit of support, an I-134, not the 864. Okay. Asonganyi, happy to meet you. If President Trump wins the election, can he extend the ban when he has not been officially put into office before January 20? It's actually the 20th of 2021. He can. He is the president between the election and January 20th. Okay, so he continues to be the president. It's so he can do anything he wants during that time, and he probably will extend the ban. I mean, the difference is if he's lost the election on January 20th, Biden could take that away, right? Yeah, Dorella. So I just covered that. Do I feel the ban will expire or not? I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, I just said he probably will. I think there's a high chance he will extend the ban, Trump. But I think there's also a high chance he's going to lose the election. It's about 85% chance of Biden winning the election at the moment. So the odds are and the odds are getting better. It was about 75% about 2 weeks ago. So the odds are getting better. It's looking better for Biden, worse for Trump, which is better for America. Christina, DV. Okay. I submitted DS260 in June, but didn't receive the request for documents yet. I wrote an email to KCC, but they didn't respond. KCC have been really late to respond. I wrote to them recently about something to try and organize something with their management team about documents to try and improve this document craziness. I got a stupid answer from them this morning. I was frustrated with that, but I'll keep pushing. But they're slow to respond. They're obviously dealing with things, but just be patient, Christina. They'll get there in the end. Enrique Gomez, in this moment, for people like me who are in standby, only waiting for constant interview, nothing is sure for you. No, that's absolutely right. Nothing is sure. I'm afraid I can't offer certainties. Okay. Covered about the ban. Juliana Pergega. A lot of clarification for the ones that have visa issued in September and plaintiffs on Mohammed and Fongzhong and can benefit from the Charles lawsuit. A lot of clarification. I think you're just saying there's been a lot of clarification. Hopefully that's what you're saying, Juliana. I'm glad. Suhail, thanks for all this clear illustration. Okay. Okay. My number is too small. Could you provide me with if I have to apply for DV2022 or NN or not, I suppose? Anybody can apply for DV2022. Why not, right? Whether you're a 2020 winner with a visa or whether you're a 2021 winner, why not? Just apply for DV2022. There's no harm in that. Where is saying, is it okay to have a beard? Yes, it is. A small beard. I can see your profile photo, a small beard, right? If you had a beard, like if I grow a beard, it's massive. It covers, it's like Santa Claus. It's all white and massive. So it covers a lot of my face, and that would be a problem. And so, you need to be clean shaven if the beard covers too much of your face, right? Togashi is asking an interesting question. Does the order of the names, does it matter? Just try and get it right. Try and get it to match the passport. But it's not the end of the world if you get it wrong. But obviously, it's a bit odd if you don't know the order of your own names, right? Does it matter? C43089. Does it matter opening the DS260 as many as 3 times? No, it doesn't make any difference at all. Noel says B1, B2 visa. I think I answered that earlier. No, you can't come and do adjustment. You won the DV lottery. Oh, I see. No, different question. Right. So you've got a B1, B2, and you've got DV. You're a DV 2021 winner, I guess. Can you come to the US with the B1 visa and apply for adjustment of status? That's actually fraud. And I don't suggest you do that. right? Because when you enter as a B1 holder, you're entering promising that you are coming temporarily and you're going to leave, and then you apply for adjustment status and they say, well, hang on a minute, then you lied when you came in, you fraudulently entered the USA. Now you can change your mind, obviously, but you have to wait. You can't change your mind from one day to the next. You have to wait 90 days. But in any case, it's a risky thing to do. And a B1 visa, you shouldn't be there for very long anyway. So my basic answer to that is don't try it. I think it's a bad idea. And why try it? What's the advantage? Nude says, what are the consequences of joining the PI case of, there's no consequences. No consequences of being on a lawsuit. It's a good thing. Is it possible to ask you questions in private in your website? In your website? On my blog, Daniel, I answer questions, and I prefer to answer questions in public because I can answer a question for one person and others can read it and they can benefit from that example. If, on the other hand, you absolutely have to ask me a question in private because there's some personal information that I need to know in order to answer your question, then you can email me at BritSimon3@gmail, right? But I prefer not to do email questions because, as I say, only one person can benefit, and I try and multiply the benefit of my time. Akum says, Trump is a loser 100%. He told today that he will not participate in the next online debate. Yeah, no, he's an idiot. Well, I mean, from his point of view, it's better if he keeps his mouth shut. And I'm sure his advisors are thrilled that he's not going to participate in the next debate, because the last one was a complete shit show. He's a lunatic. And, if you can't debate, it says something about your basic intelligence. And, he can't debate. He can be an arrogant, he can be a buffoon, he can be interrupting and everything else, but that's not the mark of a leader or a president. It's very unpresidential. It's pathetic. So, there you go. Sweshi, hello, Sweshi from Kenya, the country of Barack Obama. Speaking of presidents, Barack Obama's father was from Kenya. You probably know that. Yes, I thought I'd go on a bit earlier today. Okay, so I'll try and quickly just go through these last few questions and then we'll call it a day, right? So Effie, do I have immigrant visa printed but cannot enter the country? Is there any there's some risk, Effie, of an extension, and we're trying to fight that at the moment. We're preparing to fight that, and we're trying to proactively fight that. But generally speaking, my assumption is that people will be able to enter in January, either January 1 because the ban expires, or after January 20 because the new president comes in and removes these bans. Okay. Yeah. My passport will be expiring November 19. Can I use the same passport number? Yes, you can. If your passport is expired now, you can't enter the lottery. If it expires in a week's time or 2 weeks' time or a year's time or whatever, you can enter the lottery today because it's not expired yet, right? Catquat says, what's the right way to write your country of eligibility when you're currently living outside of your country of birth? It is nothing to do with where you live, right? Your country of chargeability has got nothing to do with where you live. Okay, it's to do with your country of birth. That's it. You're only born one time. You're only born in one country, and you fill out the question where it says country of birth. You put your country of birth in there, and only in rare exceptional circumstances do you need to put anything about country of chargeability. Okay, so if your country of birth is eligible, then just put the country of birth. Simple as that, right? Nothing else, right? Nothing to do with your citizenship, your place you live, where your uncle comes from, nothing. It's country of birth. Okay, is that absolutely clear, Kekwat? By Kelly. Each region has its own number. Yes, so there can be an Africa number 1, and there can be an Asia number 1, and there can be a Europe number 1, and so on. So each number has its own range of numbers. And so Cameroon, you have case number 51,000. That's 51,000 in Africa, but there are not 51,000 cases in front of you because there's holes, and I've explained that in videos and on my blog why there's holes. Okay, so there you go. Back. My case number is Asia 11,000. Would like to know when KCC will send the invitation. That's going to be some months, right? We're not going to go to 11,000 for some months from now. And till now, I didn't receive the email to provide expected documents like military record. Right, so that's all part of the process. They'll send you that letter soon. Okay. Okay. Let me scan down. Oh man, I've got Gru. How you doing? Why Curtis? Okay, so Gru, I answered this at the beginning of the call. Why Curtis was upset with the AILA appeal, but basically it's smart people, smart lawyers. They're all in control of their own destiny, etc., and they don't, necessarily want to be controlled by somebody else's decision. But each of the lawyers are working in the best interest of their own clients, and so and I actually agree with AILA's decision. And scroll back in the video, to understand why. And then you're saying it looks like Curtis cares more about Kennedy plaintiffs rather than his plaintiffs who already got visas. Yeah. The first case, Mohammed and Fongjong, was, his responsibility was to get the people visas, right? And he did that. Whereas the Kennedy case was a different thing a little bit. It was also about getting visas, but he's focused on the people paying him, and he's got a different focus. So I agree with you, Gru. He's got a slightly different perspective, but he's doing the right thing for his clients. So he's trying to work for the broad perspective, but it's probably not much comfort if you were a plaintiff of his on the earlier case. You've got your visa, as I know you do, and now you're still stuck until January. But I think for now that's just what you need to do. Google Panda. I think I answered this one, Mina. I saw this question today. Yeah, so I'm going to answer that on. I've seen this written down. Google Panda. Meanie. I think it's on my blog. I'm going to answer it there. Just needs a little bit more detail. Mama Rock. My visa issued on 30th September. They mention subject to PP 101114. Yeah, so so it just means Mama Rock, you can't enter until December 31st or after that, after the ban is removed. Solav says visa expired and reissued with deduct visas. Well, okay, so I don't think, Solav, that visas will be reissued. That's a particular case. I think all the reissuances had to have been done by September 30th. There is an aspect of the lawsuit that's still going through that is about reissuances for after September 30th. I'm not sure they're going to win that piece, so you have to wait and see. How many entries will be selected from Africa in DV 2022? Probably about 50,000, roughly. They'll select 50,000, and there are 20,000 visas available, 24,000 visas available for Africa. Okay, BTube. Okay. Group 5, Fred, you were asking about Group 5. Group 5's in trouble, I have to say. There's a lot of people who want visas, and Group 5 are the hardest to process. They're going to be in trouble. So that's, putting it bluntly. Amar Weiser, yes, you can use your wife's country of eligibility if your country is also eligible. It's called elective cross-charging. You would do that. I wouldn't do that in normal terms. The only way I would do that is if your wife's country is in the Oceania region. and because the chance of selection in Oceania is much higher than Africa, Europe, Asia, South America, much higher, 10 times higher. So that's the only way I would personally do that. If you are both eligible, use your own country of birth, except if her country of birth is in Oceania and yours is not, then use that. My question is about the address of the person. This person left US. Okay. Yes, you need to change the address because that's going to be where your green card will be sent. Saladin is asking, has there been any 2021 interviews? No, none, not a single one. People, Gemma, you're asking how do people with an expired password, password, I think you mean passport, can apply. They need to get a new passport. They can't apply with an if they've got an expired passport, they can't apply. Okay. Okay, Andril, you're saying to apply for DV2022 twice for husband and wife, do you need to use 4 different photos? No, just 2 photos. The photos both need to be recent, taken within the last 6 months, but yes, you could repeat them. So you enter with a photo of yourself and a photo of your wife, and then your wife enters with the same photo of herself and then the same photo you used. That's fine. No problem with that. Okay. Shaheen, Curtis suggests not to contact KCC or the embassy. Embassy claims during 90 days they will not operate. Right. So, oh well, and Charles Kuck is saying something different. I don't think he is actually saying something different, to be honest. The embassies and KCC are not going to deal with you at the moment. So I agree with Curtis in this respect. I don't think Charles is saying what you're saying he's saying. The reality is they're not doing anything for anybody right now. So, so if you're talking about DV 2020, it's over as far as the embassies and KCC are concerned. All right. So if that's what you're talking about, 2020, then Curtis is correct. Okay. Pedro Conclaves. Not sure if this was asked, but just in case, the reserve visas, if one gets it, will count from fiscal year end, meaning September 30th, expiring March. Oh, okay. The date of the issuance. We don't know, actually. We don't know that point, Pedro. You're asking, so let's say if they issued them in December, would they have a 30th of September date, and would they expire therefore in March? Well, firstly, the expiry date of a visa is based on the medical date plus 6 months, right? That's the normal rule. So if you had a medical in December, for example, it got issued in December, in theory it should count for 6 months after that. But your question is interesting because maybe for legal reasons they might have to backdate the visa issuance date to September 30th and therefore have a shorter time period to enter. I don't know at the moment. We don't know the answer to that. It hasn't been agreed. Nobody knows. Omer says, I'm in the Fongdong case. Am I safe? Ask Curtis, but basically no, if you don't already have your visa, nobody's safe. And even those who have the visa have some complication. So nobody's safe right now in DV 2020. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to have to stop. I've scrolled down as fast as I could. I realize I've got more questions to answer. I can't spend more time, I'm afraid. I've actually got a meeting in a couple of minutes. But I appreciate your input today. I appreciate your questions. And thank you for coming online with me quickly. And please do, to understand what I said about the lawsuits and the 2021 lawsuit and the DV 2020 lawsuit and so on, go back to the beginning of the video, please, and watch this through. Okay. Please make sure that you're subscribed. I assume you probably all are because you jumped on the call straight away. But But make sure you're subscribed and give my channel a good push, please. That would be I'd be grateful. All right, guys. Thank you. Good luck, everybody. Bye-bye.